Imagine being harassed in your own yard, by someone who doesn't even live on your street. That's exactly what happened to me. I was enjoying a peaceful weekend, just tending to my garden and upgrading my yard, when a woman I'd never even spoken to before stormed up and started barking orders like she owned the block. Her problem? Decorative solar garden lights I'd just installed. She claimed they violated HOA rules, despite the fact that I wasn't even part of her HOA. Things escalated quickly. She threatened to report me and, to my shock, actually called the police. Over lights. On my property. But what happened next? She never saw it coming. Because I wasn't just going to let her bully me, I fought back, legally and smartly. And by the end of this story, she learned that playing petty games with the wrong homeowner comes with serious consequences. Hey everyone, welcome back to Voice of Tales, where real stories of entitlement, revenge, and justice come to life. If you've ever had to deal with a nosy neighbor, a power-tripping stranger, or someone who thinks HOA rules apply to the whole world, then you're in for a ride. Today's story is about a classic HOA Karen, you know the type. Loud, self-appointed neighborhood enforcer, and absolutely convinced she runs the show. But here's the twist, she tried to control my private property, and it backfired in the most spectacular way possible. So sit back, relax, and let me walk you through how her obsession with control turned into a lesson in boundaries and consequences. I live in a quiet, well-kept suburban neighborhood, the kind where people wave while walking their dogs, lawnmowers hum on Saturdays, and kids ride bikes till sunset. For the most part, it was peaceful. I had lived here for a few years and really took pride in maintaining my home. I'm the kind of homeowner who actually enjoys yard work, not because I have to, but because I love making my space beautiful. I'd recently added some landscaping features, upgraded the front walkway with new pavers, and installed soft solar garden lights along the path. It wasn't anything flashy or obnoxious, just simple, tasteful improvements that made my home feel more like mine. Everything was running smoothly, until she showed up. Her name was Karen, and yes, she lived up to every bit of the stereotype. I'd never spoken to her before, but one afternoon, while I was adjusting the garden lights I had just installed, she marched right up to the edge of my yard with this stiff, forced smile and a clipboard in hand. Without even saying hello, she launched straight into a lecture about how my lights were too bright and might be a violation of neighborhood standards. Mind you, she didn't even live on my street. At first, I thought she was just confused, maybe mistaking me for someone else, so I politely told her I wasn't part of any HOA. But that only made her more aggressive. Over the next few days, she kept popping up with new complaints. The color of my fence wasn't uniform, my mailbox looked too modern, and I kid you not, she said one of my garden gnomes looked unprofessional. It would have been funny if it wasn't so invasive. Slowly but surely, her behavior turned from annoying to obsessive. And I started realizing this wasn't going to stop on its own. It didn't take long before Karen's little complaints turned into full-blown harassment. I started finding passive-aggressive notes taped to my mailbox, scribbled in all caps with things like "your lights are a nuisance" and "follow the community standards." Some weren't even signed, but I knew exactly who they were from. Then she started walking by my house more frequently, but not casually. She'd stop at the edge of my yard, take photos with her phone, sometimes even zooming in on my lawn decorations or my porch. One day, I had a couple of friends over for a barbecue, and she had the nerve to walk up the driveway and tell them they were parked too close to the curb. She kept insisting she was a representative of the HOA, but here's the kicker, she wasn't. In fact, there wasn't even an active HOA for our street. She was just a self-appointed enforcer with a fake title and way too much time on her hands. And at that point I knew I had to start documenting everything, because something told me she was about to take things way too far. Then it happened, the moment Karen officially lost it. One quiet evening, I was out front replacing a few of the solar lights that had dimmed over time. Nothing loud, nothing unusual. But apparently, that was the final straw for her. About 20 minutes later, 2 police officers pulled up in front of my house. At first, I was confused. Had something happened in the neighborhood? But then I saw her. Karen, standing dramatically on the sidewalk, arms crossed, pointing at my property like I was running some illegal operation. The officers approached me calmly and said there had been a complaint about unauthorized construction and possible safety violations due to lighting. I almost laughed. I explained everything. The lights were decorative, low voltage, and completely within code. I even offered to show the receipts and the packaging. The officers were polite, professional, and clearly realized pretty quickly that this was a false alarm. One of them glanced at Karen and asked, "Ma'am, do you have any documentation or authority here?" Of course, she didn't. She stammered something about community expectations and property values, but the officers gently reminded her that personal preferences aren't enforceable by law. They apologized for the inconvenience and left, but not before giving Karen a look that said, "Really? And me?" I stood there calmly, knowing this wasn't over, but now I had the law on my side. After that ridiculous police encounter, I knew it was time to take this to the next level, the official level. I decided to reach out to the actual HOA board that oversees our broader neighborhood area, even though my street wasn't under their direct jurisdiction. I figured they'd at least want to know that someone was out here pretending to speak on their behalf. I drafted a detailed email with everything I had, the fake claims, the photos she took, the notes she left, and even the police report number from when she called 911 over my garden lights. To their credit, the HOA board responded quickly. They were shocked. One of the board members actually called me to apologize, saying Karen had no authority whatsoever and wasn't affiliated with them in any capacity. In fact, they'd received complaints about her from residents in other areas too. They assured me they'd be sending her a formal cease and desist for misrepresenting the HOA and told me to keep documenting her behavior in case she kept pushing. And at that moment, I realized Karen wasn't just annoying, she was officially out of line. And now, she wasn't just dealing with me, she was dealing with the system she thought she could manipulate. Now that the HOA had confirmed Karen was acting completely on her own, with zero authority, I decided it was time to protect myself in a more official capacity. I went down to the local police department and filed a formal harassment complaint. I brought everything, printed screenshots of her texts and notes, timestamps from my security cameras showing her repeatedly trespassing to take photos, and the incident number from the night she called the police over my garden lights. The officer I spoke with was surprisingly supportive. He said that while Karen hadn't technically broken any laws yet, the pattern of behavior absolutely showed signs of targeted harassment. He filed the report and told me that if she showed up on my property again or made another false police report, I'd have every right to press charges. Having that complaint on file changed everything. Now it wasn't just a weird neighborhood squabble, it was a documented case. And Karen? She had no idea the quiet homeowner she tried to intimidate had just turned the entire situation into a legal paper trail that could end up costing her a lot more than just her pride. With the formal complaint on file, I knew I had to take things a step further to protect myself, and to make sure I had solid evidence if Karen decided to strike again. So I went out and installed a full set of security cameras around my property. Front yard, driveway, side gate, all covered. I didn't go overboard with anything flashy or intrusive, just clean, high-definition cameras with motion alerts and cloud backups. The kind that blend in but see everything. And honestly, the cameras weren't just for Karen anymore, they gave me peace of mind. Within just a couple of days, I caught her on video slowly driving by my house, phone in hand, clearly still taking pictures. One night, she actually walked up to the edge of my lawn again, looked around, and left another one of her classic notes, all of which I now had crystal clear footage of. It was like she couldn't help herself. But what she didn't realize was that every little move she made from that point forward was being recorded, and I was building a bulletproof case. With all the footage, the police report, and the mounting evidence of Karen's obsessive behavior, I followed up with the HOA board and handed everything over. They were more than ready to act. Within a week, I received confirmation that a formal cease and desist letter had been issued and delivered to Karen. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist, It was a legally binding notice warning her to immediately stop all harassment, false representation, and contact with me. The letter made it clear, if she continued, she could face legal consequences, including charges for impersonation, harassment, and trespassing. I heard from a neighbor that when she got it, she was furious, ranting about how she was just protecting the neighborhood and that I was ruining the community's image. But the damage was done. She had crossed the line too many times, and now it wasn't just me pushing back, it was the HOA and the law. And the best part? I didn't have to raise my voice once. Just facts, documentation, and letting the system work the way it's supposed to. Even after the cease and desist was delivered, I stayed cautious. Karen was unpredictable, and I wasn't about to let my guard down. So I took the extra step of consulting with a local attorney, just in case she tried anything else. I brought all the documentation, the notes, the videos, the complaint report, and even a copy of the cease and desist letter. The lawyer reviewed everything and told me I had a solid foundation to file for a restraining order or even sue for harassment and emotional distress if her behavior continued. Just knowing I had that legal option ready gave me complete peace of mind. I wasn't looking for a fight, I just wanted to be left alone in my own home. But if she pushed any further, I was fully prepared to take it to court. This wasn't about pettiness anymore, it was about setting boundaries and standing up for my rights. And now, with legal backing, Karen was officially out of options. Eventually, all of Karen's self-appointed authority and fake crusading caught up with her, and it wasn't pretty. After receiving the cease and desist, she tried to act like nothing had happened. But the HOA wasn't done. Turns out, she had been bothering other homeowners too, leaving notes, making demands, and misrepresenting herself as some sort of enforcer. So the HOA board slapped her with multiple fines for impersonation and harassment, and they made sure every neighbor in the area knew she had no official power whatsoever. Word spread fast. People stopped waving to her. Conversations on the sidewalk grew quiet when she walked by. She had built her reputation on control and intimidation, but now she was completely isolated. I even heard that the local police paid her a personal visit to remind her that any further contact with me, or anyone else she was harassing, could lead to criminal charges. Her lies, her threats, her fake authority, all of it unraveled in the most public and satisfying way. And the best part? I didn't have to stoop to her level. I just stood my ground, followed the law, and let the truth do the heavy lifting. After everything settled down, life in the neighborhood slowly returned to normal, and honestly, it felt even better than before. The tension that had been hanging in the air every time Karen walked by was gone. She stopped showing up near my property, no more notes, no more complaints, no more drama. Some neighbors even came by to thank me for standing up. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she had tried to intimidate, just the first to push back in a serious way. A few weeks later, her house went up for sale. Whether she moved by choice or because she was finally tired of being held accountable, I didn't care. What mattered was the peace and quiet that followed. I could finally enjoy my yard, my home, and my life without looking over my shoulder. And standing my ground? It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back, it's calmly, legally, and intelligently reminding people that they don't get to control others just because they feel entitled. Sometimes the best response to entitled behavior is staying calm, gathering facts, and letting karma do the rest. You don't need to stoop to their level to come out on top. Just be smart, stay steady, and trust that truth has a way of shining through. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a like, drop a comment below with your thoughts or similar experiences, and don't forget to subscribe to Voice of Tales for more real-life stories of justice, revenge, and satisfying outcomes. Thanks for watching, and remember, respect goes a long way.